So, hello, everybody. Today in the studio, I'm excited to have our very special guest, professional drummer and educator, and someone who, if you are online, you've probably seen in the last several years, has become an internet sensation. I consider her maybe a Drumeo star. She's made appearances on Jimmy Fallon, Nick Cannon show, Jennifer Hudson show. She's endorsed by Peisty, Adario, and Tamburo drums. I'm very excited to have with us today Dorothea Taylor. So welcome, Dorothea.
Thank you.
And how are you
I'm
doing
glad to be
today?
here. Doing great. Sun is shining, 75 degrees. It's perfect.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I'm excited to talk with you because I feel like we're kind of kindred spirits in that we are both women who are in a field that, at least in the past, was
Yeah,
not what you'd say dominated by women.
right.
Um, and also, for you, you are someone who has had an entire career of music, but the world really didn't get to discover you until maybe in the last 10 years. And you've had a tremendous rise in popularity. You're getting a lot of attention and a whole lot of respect. And I'm just so happy for you. And I'm happy how that can be such an inspiration, not only for girls and women, but for people who are of certain ages and kind of have these deadlines set in their head saying, well, if I haven't done this by this age, then it's never going to happen.
Exactly.
Or perhaps that the world is only there for the young and attention and celebrity, if you will, really only goes towards the young, healthy people who are new to the scene. And I just think that your story can be such an inspiration. So I'm excited to dig in and hear about your
Okay.
life experiences. And if you don't mind, I don't want to discount, how you got to where you were, your, all your schooling and training. But I know if you want to briefly describe your professional life and how much your life has changed, let's say maybe in the last 10 years, or when you had your first viral videos, that I can imagine just really changed your life. Would you mind just in a
Yeah.
nutshell kind of talking about that?
Okay. Well, I, when YouTube started, being popular, which was like 13 years ago, I think, I posted a few YouTube videos and they did, really well. And I didn't post like daily or even weekly, but I got good response from them. And then all of a sudden, TikTok was the thing. And so my grandson, he was, he's 15 now. So, he was like 11 or 12. And he's the one who said, Grandma, just post for the fun of it. Get the TikTok app and just post something. And so I think that was my first kitchen video. I said, okay, I'll just do a double stroke roll. And that's the one that on TikTok has 46 point something million views. And it double stroke roll. And it wasn't all that good, even. I just did it on the spur of the moment, recorded it on my phone and put it up. And within, I think it was like 2 days, it had a million. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be fun. So, I did another one after that. And I don't remember how many days after that. And I don't even remember which video, but it started, picking up. And I think Drumeo, especially, saw that this double stroke roll video was just getting million after million after million. And so they're the ones who contacted me and called me to see if I wanted to come out to Vancouver, which was, it's a long ways away from South Carolina versus, Vancouver across the whole United States. And I said, okay. I said, but I don't really want to go out there by myself. And so he said, well, bring someone. So I brought one of my former students, which he had a blast going with me and he was kind of like my chaperone. He helped me maneuver through the airports and everything. We got to Drumeo, and they said, "Okay, this is what we got planned for you," because I had no idea when I got there what was going to go down, and that was the starting of that video. And he said, "Okay, this is what we're going to do. You're going to do a little acting." And I was like, "Oh my gosh," I was so nervous. And we went to a music store, and the guy, he told the guy what to say, and he said, the pianos are in the back, or whatever the words were, and I was driving the car to the different spots. And when we went to dinner that night after we had filmed that, he said, Jared from Drumeo, he said, I bet this video is going to get 1 million views. And I was like, no, no way. And it did. And it has way up in the millions, which was just insane. And then when I was out there, I was out there for a couple of days. Okay, now we're going to do a video on this rudiment and that rudiment and just different things so that they could have them as different Drumeo lessons and all. And it just grew from there. So all of my opportunities started with TikTok. Then I, started doing things with Instagram, and I have a lot of followers on Instagram as well. And that's what started my, recognition. Everyone knows me. I went to sign up for this new place called BJ's yesterday. Instead of Sam's or Costco, we've got a new BJ's, and they recognized me, and I had to do some selfies with them. It was just so crazy everywhere I go. But it's been so much fun,
I
and
can
I'm having a
imagine.
blast.
So how long ago was that Drumeo video, the first
I
Drumeo video?
think I think it was 2019. I feel like it
2019.
was
So about
2019.
about 5 years ago. So you
Yeah.
were you were 60, 68, 69. It's hard
I
for me
think
to do math.
yeah, it's probably 69 years old. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so that was what was, you know, way out of my realm of thinking, and never thought about anything like that happening. And
Hmm.
so it's just been a blast.
So when you were younger, was that something you aspired to? Did you ever think, "Oh, I want to be famous," or "I want to be known"?
When I was a teenager, yes, of course. And,
Hmm.
I wanted to, my cousin lived in California. And I said, when I graduate from high school, I want to go out to stay with my cousin and get in a band and, a rock band and be famous. It was just, a kid saying that.
Hmm.
And then I got married early. I was married at 19, and started having babies 2 years later. And, so that thought went down the tube. And so I've just been a regular mom growing up, with my kids. I have
Hmm.
3 children, and just, playing gigs around town with different people, and, teach. I started teaching at 17. I started teaching the drum line that I was in, the drum and bugle corps, had a feeder corps with the younger kids, so that when somebody would age out at 21, the kids in the feeder corps would feed up into that. And so I was their drum instructor.
Hmm.
So I've been teaching drums really since I was 17.
Wonderful. So you became a mother. You got married and became a mother, but you continued on, say, as a professional
Yes,
drummer and
yes,
drum teacher. So,
yep.
so in a way, a dream, as you said, the dream of being famous kind of went out the window. But
Hmm.
in addition to
Yep.
being famous, did you also think, well, for a career, I want to be a drummer. I want to be a music teacher.
I don't really know that I ever thought about it. It was just something that I did
Mm-hmm.
for little extra money, playing in different bands. I had money to buy the kids clothes and things like that as they were growing up. And it was just fun money. And
Mm-hmm.
my husband made the breadwinner money to pay for all the bills and
Mm-hmm.
all. But mine was just fun money and just extra money. And
Mm-hmm.
so because I'm a drummer, when you have that in your blood, you have to do something with it. You can't
Yep.
just be home and, working 9 to 5 and never thinking about drumming. I think if you're a real drummer, you have that no matter what happens. Just like I've had some viral videos of me just in the kitchen with the water dripping from the sink because, I thought, oh, I was just passing through and I heard that drip and I said, I'm going to do a video. And so I turned my camera on and I pretended I was just walking back into the scene and then I started playing. Is because drummers hear rhythms. You hear rhythms when you're walking. If you're, making steady steps, we're thinking paradiddle, paradiddle, doom, 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 that kind of thing. Drummers live and breathe rhythms. And that's what I feel like, almost 74 now, and I'm still that way, exactly like I was when I was, you know, 13 when I first started playing.
Hmm.
And I'm still that way all these years because I couldn't just, hang it up. It's just part of me.
I agree. I think there are people who maybe like the drums or curious about the drums and played a little, and then there are people who I just consider they're true
Yes.
drummers.
True
The
drummers.
drums
Yes.
just called to them.
Yes. And
And
that's
yes,
what I feel. Yeah.
the thing about hearing the rhythms all day. I don't know if you do this, but I chatter rhythms on my teeth.
Yes. I
I'm
do that
sure
too.
I'm sure my molars are grounded down. You talk about
It's
hearing
it's almost
things.
like a sickness
Oh, I think
we
it's
have.
probably like a repetitive mental illness in a good way.
It is.
But yeah, in addition to hearing rhythms, if I hear anything, it's a tempo and then it's a cadence that's going to that
Hmm.
tempo, or it's a song
Yep.
that goes into
Yeah.
that. And
And
another thing that I
people
noticed,
don't understand that who are not musicians and not drummers, they don't understand what we go through.
one thing I noticed when I was in college, that when I was at a show, a music performance, and there was applause, I would always try to clap in tempo unknowingly because I was at some show. It was a fast song. They got it done. And I was clapping really fast. And I'm thinking, why am I stressing out clap? Because I was trying to do it. And then I realized I clap quarter note triplets to whatever the tempo was. So there's some insight
It,
into
it's a sickness. Yeah.
how odd. Yes.
But it's
Yes.
a fun sickness.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
It really is.
absolutely. And yeah, the Drumeo video, that was the first one was Down with the Sickness. Is that correct?
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
the first one
And
that came
I
out.
had never done anything like that. I had never
Mm-hmm.
played that kind of music before.
Mm-hmm.
And so before I went, they did send me uh, 2 or 3 different songs. And so I did have that here at the house to listen to and kind of prepare for. And then when I got there, I told him, I said, well, I feel safe with Down with the Sickness because it wasn't too crazy, because I had never been behind or in front of a camera filming things like that before. And so I wanted to be positive of what I was going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to do something that I might flub up on. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why I chose Down with the Sickness. But it had that heavy feel, and I've always loved heavy rock. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
that's how I started playing drum set was listening to Led Zeppelin.
Mm-hmm.
And back then Led Zeppelin was considered, heavy.
Yeah, well, it's also a testament about you not being too afraid to put yourself out there. Doing something you haven't done before in terms of, say, that style on camera.
Definitely.
It's taking
Yes,
a risk, but
definitely.
you also had the skills and the experience
Yeah.
um,
Because
to back it up.
when I went out there, I had just finished maybe like 4 years of playing with a Dixieland band.
Mm-hmm.
And Dixieland is, just kind of swing kind of feel. And so Down with the Sickness was just like total opposite. So, I just had to get the confidence. Okay, yeah, I can do this.
Mm-hmm. Well, and to me, it's another example of one of the most wonderful things about music, the pursuit of music, and for us, the pursuit of drumming, is
Hmm.
there's always something new to learn or to explore.
Yes. Oh,
And
yes.
and I really do
Definitely.
think that's the secret to longevity, to good mental health.
I
And
hope
there's a
so.
saying, I actually got this from a Dr. Seuss book where I reworded it. So if you can gather this, once you stop starting, you start stopping.
Oh,
Meaning
I
like
love that.
always try to learn new things because you're
Hmm.
growing. And as soon as you stop learning new things,
Yeah.
then you're stopping. So once you stop starting, you start stopping.
I
So you
love that.
so think about how you can spend your an entire lifetime in the pursuit of music styles and drumming and all it has to offer. And in a lifetime, you wouldn't be able to learn it all.
No, there's
And
always
yeah,
things that I'm finding that I'll come up here and give a try to. There's
yeah.
always something.
This is also a testament to, I guess, a positive side of the internet. We can
Hmm.
say that there's so many negatives to cyberspace and all the evils it could
Oh, yeah.
provoke, but it's a chance for us to share and to have a global reach. Because again, I
Yes.
think about how in your career, you've probably been well known in your community. And like for me, I'm very well known in my community.
Hmm.
I just started my YouTube channel in the last 2 years, and I get responses from all over the world because
Yes, I do as well.
I'm having a global reach,
Uh-huh.
and it's interesting because to some people you're new, your skills are new, but to you it's like I've always been here.
Yeah.
This is something that you've developed throughout your whole lifetime, and it's wonderful that
Right. Right.
you're able to share it to the world. You're able to offer your gifts to the world, especially with you're teaching your lessons.
Hmm.
So it can be pretty amazing.
I've had several students from different countries that I do viral lessons with
Hmm.
over the past, since COVID, really. COVID is
Yeah.
the one that started my virtual lessons.
Hmm.
And so I've met some really cool people.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. I'm making some very interesting connections.
Hmm.
So we talked about before, one of the things we have in common is being women, women who have raised families. So I'm a mother of two. I have two boys who are grown, they're in their 20s, and I have two
Uh-huh.
stepchildren who've been in the mix. And to me, that meant whether I'm saying having to or deciding to, make some sacrifices. And just understanding, there can be times of our lives where we might have to put our musical pursuits on hold.
Hmm.
Um, for me, it never really went away because just like you, when my kids were young, I continued. It was a way for me to make money to do lessons,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I could stay home during the day and do gigs at night. And it's like, well, this is pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Because my husband was here, and so he would get the kids in bed if
Hmm.
I didn't put them in, because I did play for years and years. I played from 9:30 to 1:30, and that was a popular time back then in the
Yeah.
70s.
When
So,
when I was younger, we would do gigs till 1 or 2. I look back,
yeah,
I think how could I could not
I know. They're
honestly.
not really doing those as much
No.
anymore.
People
But
want to go to bed, want to go home earlier. I think the crowds do. Yeah.
no, I used to play until 1 or 1:30, and
Mhm.
but I didn't have to leave the house until say 8:30 at night because the
Mhm.
kit was already set up because we just played same place 5 nights a week. So
Yeah.
my husband was there, and he would, put them to bed. And then even in high school, if they had to get up early for any kind of early class or whatever, if I had had a late night, my husband would get them up for me.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it was very helpful.
I think about my kids' experience having a mom who's a drummer. And for them, that's just normal. And sometimes I take
Oh,
a
yeah.
step back. Um, And they're just like, no, my mom's a drummer and she does gigs. And I think about their experience and just times when, they'll help me. They're my little roadies. I used to call them my little, my mini
Yep.
roadies. But I could
Yep.
say to my son, hey, will you go grab the snare and put it over there? And they go and they knew which drum that was. Or, they
Mm-hmm.
could get
Yeah.
specific things. I could say, grab the throne. And they knew it was the,
Yeah.
it was the
Can I tell
stool.
you something funny?
Sure.
So we have several theaters here that have, Ronnie Millsap used to be here. The Gatlin brothers had a theater here and stuff. So one of the other theaters was called the Palace, and the drummer was in a show for the whole, I don't know if it was year long or maybe the summer long or whatever, but he had an opportunity to go somewhere for 2 weeks and needed someone to fill in. And so I went and listened to the show one time, and then he gave me the charts, and then it was my night to start with them. And he said, everything is there, the drums are all there. So I get there to the gig, and we were going to, I think, maybe warm up, meet each other, because I didn't even know all the musicians in there, meet the pianist and everything. And I look at the drums and there's no hi-hat stand. There's no hi-hats. Everything else was there. I was freaking out because this was a Frank Sinatra tribute band.
Hmm.
You have to have hats.
Oh, yeah.
I was freaking out. So I called my husband. This was before cell phones, and he didn't answer the phone. So I called my brother-in-law next door. I said, where's my husband? He said, oh, he's right here outside. So he came to the phone, and I said, there's no hi-hat stand here. He's like, what's a hi-hat stand?
This is your husband? Oh,
Yes.
my.
And I said, go upstairs in the drum room and get my hi-hats stand. It's the stand, and I was freaking out. My heart was racing and everything because I'd never played that show. I said, it's the two cymbals that close together. He's like, okay, I'll go upstairs and look for something. So he brought several things just in case he didn't
Mhm.
bring the right thing.
Yeah.
And it was like down to the wire before the curtains were going to open. The curtains opened, I had the hi-hats, and I couldn't even hear the music because the music was going out.
Uh-huh.
It really didn't have many monitors
They
up
didn't have
close to
monitors.
us.
Hmm.
Well, my heart was beating so fast that all I could hear was dunk, dunk, dunk,
Oh
dunk,
my
dunk.
gosh.
And I got through the first set and we had a break, and they were all saying, you did great, you did great. It was, sounded so good. I never heard a thing. I never heard a thing. The Lord must have been with me or
Hmm.
something because that's all I could hear was my heart pounding through my ears.
Hmm.
That was before in-ears. We didn't have in-ears then.
Well, that's a
But see, we didn't
testament to,
rehearse. There
yeah,
was no rehearsal as far as how the sound was going out into the audience. It
hmm,
wasn't up on the stage. But see,
that's
these
tough.
weren't like guitar players. These were like trumpet and
Hmm.
sax. What else is in like a jazz band kind of thing? Stand-up bass, and then this
Trombone, trumpet,
trombone,
trombone,
one wonderful
sax.
lady on keys and stuff. So all the sound was going out into the audience. I didn't even know what I was playing, but I did it again. I was filling in for them, so they must have liked it. Okay,
Well, that's
that
also
was the scariest.
yeah, that's a testament to good musicianship and just saying, okay, I'm just going to stick to what I know. I'm just
Yeah,
assume I'm correct. Here you go.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Oh man, that's almost like a nightmare that you have thinking about. You get somewhere and you don't have,
Oh,
your
yes.
music, or you don't have a piece. That was a living nightmare.
I have forgotten, I've forgotten my snare drum. I was on a gig and I was doing my
I
checklist of
think
I
I did
had
that one
grabbed
time.
this. Yeah, and luckily I had a cousin in the area I was driving to up around Seattle who's also a drummer, and I just called him and said, I need a snare drum. Can I get one? Things like that
That's
happen.
scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so parenthood, and I should say, this isn't just, about motherhood. There are parents, there are fathers, who also sometimes have to make sacrifices in their career, or there are just times when music has to take a back seat because we have to focus on other parts of our life. For some people, it's very difficult to earn a good living with music.
It
It
is,
takes a lot
yes.
of time and a lot of effort. But
Yeah.
this also is a testament to just because you have to put some things on hold doesn't mean you can't go back to it.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
I've had conversations with people say, yeah, I wanted to be a musician, but then I had a family and had to get a different job. So I guess that was
Yeah.
it. But,
I run into that all the time, and then they're taking lessons with me to try to get back into
mhm,
it. And I'm always like, why did you stop? You still had hours in the evening after you got home to sit behind your kit and just keep up your skills or just get a practice pad. Don't stop completely.
mhm.
There has to be an hour in the day for these people, but
Yes.
they just completely put it aside. And
Yeah.
so
Balance can
that's
be
what makes me
difficult.
wonder, you must not have loved it as much as I did,
Yeah, well,
you
there's
know?
there's that, and then there's again going back to it's never too late, and you don't have to say you're done because, well, I've reached this age and it
Right,
didn't happen.
right.
You know, I'm at a point in my life where again my kids are adults, so I'm kind of in this next phase. There's a new term now. What's your 2.0? Like when people retire and then they go on to the career they really wanted. So I'm in
Uh-huh.
my 2.0. I'm probably in my 3.0 now, where I'm kind of back to where I was when I was in college and shortly
Uh-huh.
after, where it was just I could really focus on myself. Now I was a music teacher. I did lessons. I taught at several colleges. I also taught jazz band, theory, improv. But I made the decision to change my day job. I'm basically a multimedia specialist during the day, musician by
Oh,
night,
okay.
um, which right now I don't have as much time to dedicate to music. I've taken a break from teaching, but as you were saying, the drums call to you. you
They
know,
do.
I tell people I'm not teaching anymore, but yet I still teach lessons because I have to. If anyone comes to me and says, "Oh, I love the way you do this. Can you show me?" I'm like, "Sure."
Yes, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm not
Mhm.
teaching currently, but yet I am. Because if you call me or text me, message me somewhere and say I need help with such and such, maybe one or two lessons,
Mhm.
I'm up for it. But it's just I'm just not teaching every day, all day long. I
Yeah.
have freedom to go and travel and do whatever I want.
Yeah, and there's going to be another phase of my life where I will have time to go back to full time. I'm
Right.
currently having a studio built right now.
Oh, cool.
It's gonna be my dream studio. So that's gonna allow me to have a better setup for Zoom lessons and for my YouTube
Uh-huh.
videos and whatnot. Um, but yeah, again, just coming back to, I've had so many conversations with friends who are my age who said, well, I always wanted to do this, but I never did. So I guess it's
Mm-hmm.
too late. But I always want to
It's
say,
not
now I
it's
can
not
say,
too
well, look
late.
at Dorothea. She's still
That's right.
doing it. She's out there
Yeah.
just kicking butt and taking names.
Just having
Um,
fun. Yeah.
so, you've had a career being a woman in music.
Mm-hmm.
In what ways would you say the business or drumming, the drumming world, or just whatnot, or the world in general, what kind of changes have you seen from the time you were young to now when it comes to women, the
Well,
understanding,
yeah.
acceptance of women in these different fields or the opportunities?
Well, like you said, back in the day, which was my day, uh, had signed up in sixth grade for band. I had taken piano. I started piano in third grade, and I took piano all the way to eighth grade. But in sixth grade, I want to play the drums. And so I go to sign up before sixth grade starts. I think at the end of your fifth grade, you sign up. No, you couldn't play drums because boys played drums. So I had to sign up for saxophone. So I took saxophone in sixth grade. But in eighth grade, by eighth grade, we had a drum and bugle corps in our hometown. And I said, I'm going to go and try, just go and sign up for their new season in September after they had already, done all their competitions and everything, and just see. And I go in the door. There's all kinds of people standing there, trying to sign up for different instruments. They let me right in. I couldn't believe it. And so we would go twice a week, and we had a um, ping pong table, an old ping pong table that we all stood around. So the poor ping pong table had wood chips
Mm-hmm.
from, because we didn't have practice pads back then.
Mm-hmm.
This was 1963. And so we would use, the wooden ping pong table. But I was right there in there with the guys. And, if I passed them up as far as, we would get judged every once in a while just to see what they were going to put you on, snare or tenors or bass drum or cymbals or whatever. And I was just happy as could be. They let me in. And then another girl from another school, still in our close vicinity, she came and she was playing, snare drum rudiments too. And so we were the only and first two female drummers that played in that drum corps until I got married and left, and my sister aged in because she's like almost 7 years younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
And so she joined and learned snare drum, and she marched, and she was the only female. And then that drum corps, I think I don't know what happened, but I think they shut down in, like, I left in 1970. I think it was about 1976, 7 or something like that. It just, something happened and they closed up. But she
Mm-hmm.
was the only female on the snare line in the whole drum corps then at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So, there just weren't a lot of female drummers. But Karen Carpenter, we used to watch on TV.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how old I was. I think I was in high school because I think Karen Carpenter and I would be around the same age. I think she's maybe 8 months older than I was.
Mm-hmm.
But so as I was, getting my drum set and learning how to play drum set and everything, I would watch her on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, if she can do it, I sure can do it. And I think that's what kind of helped me think that, okay, when I graduate high school, maybe I can go to New York or my cousins in California and
Mm-hmm.
get in a famous band and, become famous one day. And then I met my husband, and that was the end of that.
Well,
So
not the
I
end,
got
but
married.
things took
I
a
got
different
married at
direction.
19.
Uh-huh.
And I'm still married though, 54 years later. So,
Yeah, congratulations.
but things as far as opportunities like that did slow down. But I mean, when we got married in 1970, I had played right up until the day before we got married, and
Mm-hmm.
then he was stationed in Klamath Falls, Oregon, at Kingsley Field, I think it was called, in 1970, and I taught at a music store there. And then as soon as I got back to Myrtle Beach, I got in a band, and that was one of the bands that I played country music for the first time in my life. And we
Mm-hmm.
played 5 nights a week. And then
Mm-hmm.
when I got pregnant, I was pregnant right up until like 9 months pregnant, just playing every night. I didn't have to move my drums because they were just set up in that one place. It was a restaurant bar
That's
kind of
great.
thing. And so, I mean, I've been playing drums ever since.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know with my boys, I played up until I think the 8th month. And
Hmm.
the only differences I felt or noticed was the hauling gear. It was a little tough on my back,
Yes.
but
Yeah. And
I
luckily I
yeah,
didn't really have to because it was already set up.
yeah,
And I
that's
think I must
wonderful.
have had help, getting it in there. But we played for about a year and a half like that in that same place, which
Yeah,
was great. All I'd have to do is just drive there.
that's wonderful. Yeah, but there's
Yeah.
nothing that might not garner as much attention as a pregnant woman hauling drums in. People would
Oh
come
my
running
goodness.
and say, "Oh,
Yeah,
let me hold that for you."
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so with
yeah.
the teaching that you did, so you helped teach some drumline over the years, did you notice more participation from girls or a change in that?
Not probably not until I mean late. Like let's see, I started in '86 with our local high school here, one of our local high schools that my children were going to. I started in '86 and I taught there for 10 years, that one drum line. And I don't think there was a girl on cymbals and there was a girl on mallets, but there was
Mm-hmm.
never a girl in drumline.
Mm-hmm.
No. So it just you said, about females not being on the drum scene, but now in the last, I don't know, recent 3 or 4 years, especially on social media, there
Mm-hmm.
are some fantastic female drummers now.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah, again, that's one of the wonderful things about, the internet and social media is the
Yes.
opportunity for visibility, and then that can lead to, you know, inspiration or setting an example.
Oh
For
my
a young
goodness, there are
girl,
some
y-
really, really awesome female drummers now.
yeah, well, a young girl can look, like you said, oh, well, I can do that too. And then I think just as important, a young boy will look, and just like with my sons, it normalizes it. My
Mm-hmm.
sons didn't grow up saying, "Wow, mom, you're good for a girl," or
Yeah, I
I don't
remember
see
that.
many girls playing drums." They would never like to them it's like, "Oh yeah,
Yeah.
mom plays drums." Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had a little technical difficulties with the camera, so now I'm on my laptop camera instead of my Sony. Talking about just some differences, um, just with women's participation and women on the scene in the last several decades.
I was going to say that there are a lot of bands here in Myrtle Beach,
Hmm.
and they all know me, but I think it's still a female. I feel, I might be wrong, I still feel like because I'm a lady and I'm old, that they would rather have a guy. That way they can cuss and talk dirty and get drunk or whatever they want to do. That's my feelings right now because they know who I am and why are you not inquiring with me anymore
Hmm.
of if I would like to play a gig with them.
Well, I
Now I
think there
might be
could be,
totally
yeah,
wrong.
there could be different reasons. I think about this, and I think, especially with jazz, and it's true with all genres, is that music is very social, it's very communal. And if you think about friends, guys have guy friends, girls have gal
Yes.
friends. That doesn't mean exclusively. I have so many guy friends,
Yes.
platonic. But sometimes people think, when they think, oh, I want to form a band, they think about their buddies.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
that's part of it. Hopefully you would meet up with people who say, I want to just hire the best person for the job. And I've
Hmm.
experienced, I don't want to go as far as calling it sexism, but I can't tell you how many times I've subbed on a rehearsal or a gig and people have said, God, you're so much better than our drummer. And
Hmm.
I think, well,
And see, that's what happens. Yes, that's
I'm
exactly
available for
what I'm.
hire.
Yep.
I've had the director come up after a rehearsal and say, what was the name of the group? What would you call that groove you were playing on this one song?" And I'd say, "Oh, well, it's a blah blah blah. Could you teach that to our drummer because he really struggles with this song and I don't know what to
No.
tell him."
I
And
would
it's
say
like, "Well,
no.
I'm available for hire if they want to pay me."
Yeah.
But I'm pretty well established in the Pacific Northwest, and I have my own groups. And a saying I started to say to myself, well, if people aren't going to hire you, hire yourself.
Yeah.
Make your own opportunities. That kind of
Yeah.
thing. But
I'm
I
I'm too old
experienced
now.
one of the reasons why I know I stopped teaching high school and band and choir. I can't tell you how many times I applied for jobs where they needed someone to teach jazz band and percussion ensemble. I have an undergraduate degree in jazz studies and a master's degree in percussion. And I wouldn't even get called in for an interview. I've never lost out to another woman, always another male, and oftentimes someone who has zero experience in either. Their main
Mm.
instrument is not percussion. So again,
Yep.
maybe I
It's
just
still
didn't
there.
present well on paper, but sometimes it's subconscious to them. I think in the music education world, now I don't want to make people upset. With administration, they have this thought that, well, a male is going to be a stronger figure or a male is going to do this. Again, I don't want to offend anybody, and some people will say, well, that's not true in my district. I'm just going by my
Uh-huh.
experience. It was different at college level. I've taught at colleges. The colleges actually recruited me. They looked at my resume and said, you are exactly what we want.
Mm.
But for some reason in the music education field, it was different for me. And again, it could be everybody's experience is different. But I don't like to be
Yeah.
negative. I like to be
I
positive
know.
looking forward. So, we can talk about these things about being a woman. What would you say are some advantages about being a woman in this field? Because I can definitely think of some.
Oh gosh. I don't know. You're putting me on the spot.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
let me start. I know for me, and
okay.
this is something that someone told me when I went to a community college right after high school. And then when it was time to move on, it was either one of the teachers or just one of the musicians that would hang out and help us. He said, as you go out into the world, said you are someone who's unique. He said you're very, very talented, and being a woman, you will always stand out. He said you could think of that as a positive or a negative, but he said use that to your advantage. And I really thought about
Okay.
that because there's so many drummers out there. And if you're just another guy amongst a bunch of guys,
Right.
you
Yeah.
have to work really hard to stand out. But if you're the one gal, you're going to stick out like a sore thumb. And
And see,
so,
that's why I don't understand why they prefer the guys. Because the last band that I played in was we played classic rock, and everyone in the bar or wherever we were would come up and take pictures with me and
yes.
everything because they were noticing the female drummer back there, and they would ask me questions, and that was like the beginning of my fame, so-called fame, with TikTok and all.
Mm-hmm.
And it brought more people when they knew that this band was going to play and this female drummer was going to be there. We used to have huge crowds. And so they called me the week that I got back from Drumeo when I did that viral
Mm-hmm.
video, Down with the Sickness, and said that we know that you're not really happy with playing some of our late night gigs because they had this one venue that was we didn't get through until like 1:30, 1:35, and then we had to tear down, and I'd get home at like 10 till 3 in the morning, and I wasn't happy, but I wasn't the only one in the band that wasn't happy with it. But that was their excuse. And so while you were in Vancouver, I was there for like 2.5 days. We started using whatever his name was, and he's going to be playing our late night gigs. But if we, uh, have our normal early evening gigs, we'll give you a call. Haven't heard from them since.
See, now
And that was like a slap in the face to me.
I see that as making an assumption that perhaps because you're a woman, because you're a grandma, that you can't hang out as late or whatnot, or
Yeah, yeah.
you
But we
know,
all
who
made the
knows?
comment about, gosh,
Yeah.
this thing, we're packing up. We had to wait till we get paid. And by the time we all got home, it was almost 3 o'clock. So it wasn't just me saying, I don't want to play this gig anymore, because I loved that gig. And that's one of the places that we would get tons of people. And they were
Hmm.
just so happy to be, you know, and they would be throwing out songs, play this, play that, play this, play that.
Hmm.
And then they just gave me the boot.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? I think there are times when we have to work twice as hard to get that kind of respect, but there are other times I think I could put this in the category of an advantage, although it's is there are oftentimes people see me walk in, they have the bar is really low to them. So it's really easy for me to impress them.
Uh-huh. Because
Um,
they're not thinking
they're not
what it,
expecting much. Yeah.
well, what's going to happen.
But my advice, to say young girls who are just kind of scared or people who are struggling, I just say, just strive to be the best musician
That you
you
can
could
be.
be, because
Yeah.
then they have no excuses. They have no argument.
Right.
Then it's really is, well, maybe they just prefer to hire their friend or,
Yeah.
if you move over to disadvantages, um, what we're talking about, maybe guys just want to be free to have locker room talk.
That, yes, exactly.
When I was younger, I was single. There were issues with girlfriends of the other band members. Were very
Oh,
jealous, didn't want their boyfriend on stage with me. To me,
oh,
that's a lack of professionalism, because
yeah.
I work with professionals who are there to play music. They're not there to flirt or hook up,
Right, right.
that kind of a thing. Um, when I was younger, it just seems like I received a lot more, I'll just say, ignorant comments. Maybe it was because I was younger and these people were older. Now I'm older and the audiences might be
Uh-huh.
younger, but so often the whole blankety blank for a girl. Boy, you're really
Yeah.
good for a girl.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I've never seen a girl play as good as you. And I long for the day when someone just says, and they do now, I'm hearing less
It,
of the four girl. They say,
yeah,
you're a really
it
great
used to be
drummer.
bad.
Yeah, they say,
Yeah, it
you're a
used to be
really
really
great
bad.
drummer. Oh, yeah. I had, I think about just the, the things that people would say. I had this man, I remember I was in college, this man approached me and said, so, do girls have to set up the drums differently than boys do? And I was scratching my head saying, I don't even know what you're implying. It's like, no, our bodies work just the same.
Do the
Our
same thing.
arms and feet move. Um,
Yeah, that's a little weird.
Another comment that I just remember is I was subbing in a big band in Portland, and it was a gig. And we were on our first break, and a trombone player comes up to me and says, I got to tell you something. When you walked in with your drums, I thought, boy, our drummer is the luckiest guy in the world to have his girlfriend come in and set up his drums for him.
Oh,
And he
I
said,
know
and then
that's
you sat
happened.
down and started playing, and I was scratching my head. And
Yep,
like, ah,
that's happened plenty of times.
yeah, I don't get those comments really anymore.
Hmm.
I think for me, part of it is this is my area that I grew up in. So a lot of people on the scene, we grew up together. I'm
Uh-huh.
established. People know who I am.
But
I
I think,
still get the comment that really warms my heart, and I think I've heard you say this, is I have older women come up to me and say how proud they feel to see a woman playing. And they say when
mhm,
they were young in the 60s or even 70s, starting band, they wanted to play drums, but their band
yeah,
director said,
we
well,
were not
girls
allowed.
can play flutes and clarinets, and boys can choose between drums and brass.
Hmm. Yep,
And so they say
exactly.
they never got to,
Yeah.
pursue that. And again, a
And even
testament
when I
to,
did, even when I did sign up for band in sixth grade, they wanted me to do flute or clarinet, and I'm like, ugh,
mhm,
no. So, so I
yeah.
got the alto sax, which was a little bit more fun.
So
But yeah, that's
that,
how it was.
and that motivates me. There are times when it took me a long time to put myself out there online. So I didn't want to expose myself, put myself out there to trolls, which I really haven't had much issues
No,
with,
I
and
haven't
dealing
either.
with self-doubt, but it's when people make comments. And I've seen people make comments on your videos of, I'm such and such age, and I finally went out and bought some drumsticks because I've always wanted to play, and you have inspired
Hmm.
me that, it's never too
Yes,
late.
I've had so many people comment on both, well, all three, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You have inspired me. I'm excited. I'm, you know, just starting out, but I have always wanted to do this. And it just makes me feel good that
Hmm.
I have inspired so many people all around the world, really,
Yeah,
to either
there's,
get back into it if they did it, like, say, in middle school, and then they've not touched it since then, but
hmm
always wanted to, always had it in their mind, or whatever. And now they've been seeing me, and if she can do it, I can do it.
hmm
I'll have to say, though, the older you are, I think the harder it is for women to play things really fast. I think you have to spend more time building your chops because your hands aren't just not used to,
it's
that
definitely,
motion. It
it's
takes a
use it,
little more
it's
work.
a use it or lose it. And I do not have time. This is something I tell my students, you're just making excuses. I don't have time to practice as much as I used to.
No,
So
I don't
I
think
have to be very disciplined and strategic. If I only
in
have
what you,
half hour,
yeah,
it's like I'm going to do these drills, these drills.
right.
And yeah, so I know. I mean, I can get my chops back up if I have a gig coming up. I know I can spend more time. But yes,
Yeah.
as we age, partially it's
Yes.
the time we have to put in, but then it's technique has a lot to do with it
Mm-hmm.
and all that.
Yep. That's
But
why I
yeah,
keep my practice pads in the kitchen when I'm downstairs. I don't have to be up here behind a drum set. I can just be in the
absolutely.
kitchen waiting for something to heat up on the stove or, whatever, and just, keeping my
Hmm.
wrists going.
Yeah.
Because you can, you know, not do it for a while and you're really, really stiff. And so just to keep everything moving, I try
Hmm.
to do practice pad several times a day. It might be just 5 minutes at a time, but it's just there, just warming up my wrists,
Hmm. I've thought about
stretching.
making classes that addresses aging, drumming and aging, and self-care
Yeah, you could.
and injury prevention, and like continue
Uh-huh.
with longevity. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, one of the things that I like to do in my discussions and interviews, very similar to inside the actor's studio when James Lipton would ask questions of everyone,
Oh, yeah.
if you're familiar with that. So I have some questions I want to ask you. I won't go through all of them, but
Okay.
for the audience. So what is something, if you can think of it, what is something that a teacher has said to you that really made the most impact?
I just always tell people to try to be the best that you can be. Now, whether someone else has told me that in the past that I don't recall, but try to be the best that you can be, no matter what it is. If it is a guitar player or a chef in a restaurant, you always strive to be the best that you can be, that you know that you can be.
Hmm.
But I
Absolutely.
have to tell you, because I don't know if people assume, I've never had a drum lesson in my life.
Well, would you say that the drum corps training were
The drum corps
lessons?
training, but we never had a teacher. It
Hmm.
was always just the
Yeah.
oldest person on first snare that taught,
Hmm.
the 5-stroke roll, 7-stroke roll, 9-stroke singles, Radamancues.
Hmm.
I've never had a drum teacher in my life. So it's just being aware of things around you. You have YouTube to find everything that you need. Drumeo, there's just so many lessons. And so I'm always observing and finding new things that I want to learn. And you can do it. You just have to set your goals high. And if it's something that you want to do and be the best that you can be, do it.
Hmm. Wonderful. That would be a great place to end, but we're not going to end there. So, what is your favorite sound on the drums?
My favorite sound?
What's your favorite sound?
It's got to be snare drum.
Is snare drum.
Just the
What's your
sound itself.
what's your least favorite sound? What makes you cringe?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Not obnoxious sounding china.
That's good. For me, it would be like a popped flam or a missed
Oh,
rim shot.
oh yes,
It's
yes. That missed rim shot instead of
like
uh,
clunk.
you get.
Or or when someone pops a flam and it sounds like the head's just gonna break.
Yeah.
So what are you currently practicing right now?
I'm trying to get better with some linear grooves because linear is something new. Linear was not, back in my day. If you happen to do something linear, you never even heard the term linear, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But these gospel drummers are just totally amazing and what
Mm-hmm.
they can do with these linear grooves. And so I have a little book that I'm just picking out something not too difficult, but just something that I think would sound good in some grooves
Mm-hmm.
and just sticking that little bit of linear in it.
Wonderful. If you could play a gig tonight with anyone living or dead, any band, any musician, who would it be with?
I loved Led Zeppelin. I might have to say Led Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. And finally, is there anyone out there in cyberspace or living or past who you'd like to thank, who you've never thanked before?
Have to be Buddy Rich.
Buddy
That's
Rich.
who I used to watch on Johnny Carson. My parents would wake me up. It came on late at night. My dad worked a shift that he would get off late at 11 o'clock at night. And when Buddy would be on there, I would be sound asleep for school the next morning, and my mom or dad would come up, Buddy's on. And I would fly
Mhm.
downstairs. And he was just so amazing. The things that he could do and just the speed that he had, it was just totally amazing. And
Mhm.
so I've always looked up to Buddy Rich for his
Yeah,
skills.
it's wonderful. He was one of the first drummers that I saw on TV, and it was on the Muppet Show.
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
my exposure
Yeah.
to it.
But I had
So,
already seen him, the way before the Muppets, but I
oh yeah,
remember that show. Yeah.
yeah. So that
But
was
he
my
and Johnny
exposure.
Carson would sometimes play together because Johnny could play drums too. And he was just always on Johnny Carson. And I just loved everything that he did. And when I got married and left and went all the way across to Oregon, he came to the college that year, our local college.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like my dream to see him live. And wouldn't you know, it was when I left home.
Oh
I was so
gosh.
disappointed.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, this has been such a pleasure. I want to thank you for your time and having these discussions. And once again, when I think about your story and what I want to bring to light is a couple things. One is that it's never too late. And do
Right.
not limit yourselves. Do not have, certain, benchmarks where, well, if I haven't done it by this age, then it might never happen. You have been a successful musician your whole life, but the world in general didn't really learn about you until the last 5 or 10 years. And, you're
Yep.
experiencing tremendous celebrity. And then I say, the other lesson is never be afraid to put yourself out there, live your true passion, tell your story because you never know who's watching and being inspired.
Yep. Exactly.
So, want to thank you and thanks everybody for watching.
Thanks for having me.